Retailers are already putting out their holiday decorations, but you may see fewer options this year and also some with higher price tags this year as well. President Trump's tariffs appear to be impacting Christmas decor, especially those artificial Christmas trees. One American company, the National Tree Company, says they increased prices by about 10%. And the amount of product they imported, well, that's down 25%. Now the CEO wants the government to grant an exemption on Christmas decor. Joining me now is the CEO for National Tree Company. That's Chris Butler. Chris, thank you very much for joining me today.
Hey, Alex, thanks so much for having me.
All right, can you give us a timeline? Obviously, the tariffs have been an ongoing story ever since President Trump took office for the second term. When exactly did you realize that they would be impacting your industry? And when did you also realize that it would also trickle down to the customers out there?
Yeah, so Liberation Day, I think everybody knew Liberation Day was going to have impacts on various different businesses. And so when Liberation Day came, we were very keenly aware of what percentages we were going to hit with the countries that we manufacture in. So when we saw those percentages, we realized that, number one, obviously there would be kind of some pretty big cost increases. And number two, it would gum up supply chain and slow down supply chain. So, it did both of those things. We're at a much better level now than when Liberation came out. So the price increases that we've had to pass on aren't as bad as they could have been. But certainly from a supply perspective, it really slowed down the supply chain globally for this industry. 90% of this industry was made in China. Our business had diversified a little bit way before this, but right. Still, it really slowed down the industry.
I mean, I just provided some tough numbers for our viewers. I believe it was 10% price increase they should expect because your supply is down 25%. I take it that you crunch the numbers and you look them over twice before making those decisions. I'm sure those margins are exactly the very, very bare minimum that you could afford. But was it hard to make that decision knowing that, Christmas is such a big holiday and people love holiday decor in their homes?
Yeah, look, it was very difficult. I think when these tariffs came out, and I think when the tariff policy was enacted by the administration, look, tariffs can be a good thing in certain areas, right? National security, defense, et cetera, protecting IP. I don't think anyone in the administration would want Christmas to get caught up in this. But that's, here we are. And so, yeah, when we saw the numbers, when we realized that supply would be tricky and then our costs were going up quite a lot, we tried to absorb some costs, as you said. We asked our manufacturing partners to absorb some costs, but then ultimately we did have to pass some costs on, right. The minimum amount we could, as you pointed out.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about your efforts to actually find a fix to this solution, which is actually meeting with lawmakers on Capitol Hill about it, putting in requests to the Trump administration and the White House. Tell me a little bit about how those conversations have gone and whether or not you're getting the feedback that you hope for.
Yeah, we've had very constructive conversations with many members of the Senate Finance Committee. That's kind of where things could happen in the future. And really, again, it's educational. So educating them on, where these products are made, why it's not really possible to make them in the U.S. And, like I said, having very constructive comments with them and feedback from them. And then, in the next few days and weeks, we're meeting with, trade as well, U.S. trade. And again, the ask is really kind of more educational around why these products can't be made in the U.S. and then, what some potential solutions could be.
Yeah, it's incredible when we talk about tariffs for several months now. We think about every single industry. This is the first time I'm talking about artificial Christmas trees, but, you're no different than everybody else. And so we're glad to have a diversified topic of conversations on Morning in America. Chris Butler, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.